knowing there's something better on the other side, or you can give up and stay where you are. And everybody
ready to dive into these topics.
Let's get into these covert contracts.
I got some new apparel coming out with super style.
Leadership is about making sure that things get accomplished in the most effective manner.
You are a relationship guru, right? Listen, I think you're a relationship guru. I think you are a fitness influencer.
Kind of like mindset in your business.
Why men don't want their women on social media.
I might edit this podcast, put this at the beginning.
It's always good to, follow somebody. That's a smart woman.
Yeah.
It's your girl, Gia Macool, and you are here for part 2 with Mr. Zuby over here. Hello, how are you?
Went not the easy route. She could have easily bankrolled, just like all the other girls do in this industry.
Hey man, you only learn through failure a lot of times. You're
Going through failures, trying again. Don't let fear dictate your decisions, but don't make the same mistakes.
I want to end it off right there because that was a perfect ending.
Sex, the big one is like she tells you, okay, it's okay to not, like in a relationship over time, it's natural to not want it anymore. Like they'll tell you that. No, that's not natural. That's not normal. That's not okay. Sex, if a woman is withholding sex, she's breaking her vows in the marriage. So it's not normal.
I get it from guys a lot too, because their wives have gaslit them so much that they'll come to me and say, look, man, I've been married 30 years. And I always kind of like a jerk say, oh yeah, how's the sex? Because a lot of people think that longevity by itself is some kind of flex, and by itself, it's not. I know plenty of people that have been in long-term marriages where they haven't had sex in like 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a symptom of a major problem in your relationship.
Yeah.
And sex is really the glue that holds a relationship together. And if that's not there, you're basically glorified roommates. And men particularly are living lives of quiet desperation when they're in that type of situation, but their wives will gaslight them into believing this. And so then they start walking around going, oh, I'm a bad person for wanting sex.
So she will try to make it seem like what you want, or she'll use the word porn brain. That's porn brain. These are called shame. They're shaming tactics. There's nothing wrong with a healthy desire for sex, and the things that you want, whatever it may be, she should not be worrying about everybody else or what everybody else is telling her, is correct or normal. And this is, I just did a live before this, and we were talking, somebody came in with a question about religion, and I didn't even want to go there, because when you start getting into religion, I think that religion is one of the first places that people tend to shame sex and the desire for sex, right? You can't do this. You shouldn't do that. This is sin. This is against the Bible. Like they like to use the shaming techniques for a healthy desire for sex.
Yeah, they do. And I've done lots of podcast episodes about this, and I don't like to necessarily trash religions, but a lot of people have an unhealthy paradigm when it comes to sex because of religion. And what I've noticed in dead bedroom situations, especially like the real devout Christian guys that come to me, because those are the guys that will really come to me, because for them, divorce is not an option. That goes against God's law, and I made a vow to God, and so quitting is not an option. What do I do here? My wife has never been into sex. And these guys will have done it the right way, where they are dating, they're abstinent until they get married. And then on their honeymoon night, they find out, oh, she's got a mental aversion to sex because she's been told her whole life that it's a bad thing. So yeah, religion, unfortunately, religion does a lot of good things, but in this one area, it really can be harmful for people in their relationship.
Yeah. So what would you tell a husband or somebody in a relationship like that, how to go about handling something like that? What advice would you give them?
Well, with a situation like that, one of my beer club brothers, so I have a men's group, and one of my all-stars in there, this guy, David, he's completely turned his marriage around. He was in a situation like that. And all he did for a long time was just apply the principles that I talk about in my book. And what he ended up doing was he just started working on himself. He started sort of detaching from her a little bit and just focusing on leveling himself up, losing the weight, being more attractive, less unattractive. getting his health in check, learning what women respond to as opposed to what society says women want. And he just started applying that stuff. And what she noticed was that he was putting in all this effort, and she started getting worried that, you know, he might start looking at other women because she wasn't trying as hard. And so she started like having a meltdown about it. We call this sort of the
dread game.
Well, it's dread game. Yeah. But the way I teach passive, you know, I don't really think it's a great idea to go around and, you know, go on business trips and take pictures of like, you know, a margarita next to a beer just to make them think that you might be cheating. That's stupid game stuff. Right. But if you just become the guy that she was attracted to in the beginning, like just get back to that guy, oftentimes you'll find that other women naturally find you attractive. You don't even have to be flirting with them. And your wife will notice that sort of thing. And then she starts worrying like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to keep up. I might lose this guy. And they start freaking out. And he finally had to come to Jesus, you know, talk with her and was like, hey, this isn't working out for me. We haven't had sex in like, I think they didn't have sex for like 9 years or something. He also had a bunch of medical problems like kidney failure, and he had to do a kidney transplant, just the worst possible case. And he was able to turn this around. So I'm like, if David can do this, anybody can do this, guys. But that was the thing, is he basically got to a point where he was working on himself so much and she was worried about losing him that she was actually inspired to start looking into how she could be a better wife. And she started noticing he's reading all these types of books. He reads every book that I've ever recommended. He's one of the most coachable guys I've ever met. And if you're coachable, like there's hope for you. But he's read every book I've ever recommended. He's applied the principles, and she sees this. And so then she starts coming to him saying, hey, you listen to that guy's podcast, right? Like, is there any books he recommends for women? And so I recommended some books that my girlfriend reads, and she starts reading that stuff. He tells me, he goes, Paul, she's reading The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands by Dr. Laura. I've had that book on my shelf for 20 years. She finally picked it up and started reading it and applying it. And now she sends him like dirty texts and stuff like that. She's into it because he makes her feel validated that, hey, you know what? Sex isn't a bad thing. Sex is a wonderful thing. And you are allowed to enjoy it. God wants you to enjoy it. We're in a healthy relationship. And so he just sort of rewarded that good behavior. And then if she was acting, you know, not right, let's just say if she was acting up, he would just remove his time and attention. So he would punish that bad behavior. It ends up being operant conditioning. A lot of people think it's gameplay. Maybe. I prefer to call it effective.
Yeah, because this is the way I see it. Like you can, that's one of the reasons why I like Red Pill, is that they understand that in feminism, you do have to use that against them, right? Because feminism has taught women to forfeit their sexual agency. So because of that, they think it's the guy's job to turn them on. So what does the Red Pill do? They know, okay, well, if it's my job, I'm going to find a way to flip that on you, right? So they get it, but for long term, especially in a marriage, you know, long term, I've been married decades, that doesn't work. The woman has to take responsibility for her own arousal. She has to be aware, you know, take the responsibility, start doing stuff, you know, actually find a way to turn herself on so she can turn him on. So I'm big on that. That's why I don't believe that it's up to the guy. I personally think it's up to the girl. But how do you handle a man who comes for advice? And how does he get his woman to take charge and start being aware, right? Because a lot of times when I talk to men, like if he were to go and be like, hey, I'm talking to this female, you know, coach, she's like, oh no, like I'm not going to listen to any of that, right? So how do you get her to become aware without like her turning away from it? And that's why I think one of the big things I tell guys is like the longer you tolerate the longer you allow it to go on, the worse it is, because women work by habits and rituals. So if you don't nip it the first week, like the very first time she's like, no, I don't have time for this, or I'm busy, I'm on the phone, or whatever it may be. If you don't say, listen, I'm not cool with that. Like this is not going to work for me. Like if you have to make it a point then, because the longer it goes on, it'll become a habit and ritual, and then she'll just continue it on. So 1 week will turn into a month will turn into a year. And that's why you hear these guys going on for like 5 years without sex or a blowjob or whatever, because they've allowed it. And now she's in a habit and a ritual and she thinks it's normalized. Yeah.
Well, if it's gone that long, she has no respect for the guy anymore. Just zero respect. There's a really wonderful article written by a guy in the space named Archwinger. I don't know if you've heard of him, but Archwinger wrote a really great article that talking about how alphas don't get to set boundaries, I think is the title of it. Or not alphas, betas don't get to set boundaries. And that makes more sense. Betas don't get to set boundaries because the idea is that once you've gotten to a place where your wife has just been rejecting you for years at this point, a lot of it's just because she doesn't have any respect for you. That's a large part due to what we call the betatization process, which I talk about in my book. There's also a really great book called Practical Female Psychology that talks about this, but it's a 5-step process where women will test you. We call them, shit tests or fitness tests or comfort tests or however you want to call it, but women will test you. Men who aren't aware of it will fail all those tests. Then she'll start seeking communication and try to get you to open up, be more vulnerable. Then she'll use that against you. And then will put you to work and make you be her plow horse for a while. And then she's emasculated you so much that you just don't turn her on anymore. And so now she just rejects you and she dangles sex like a carrot. So if you're at that point, having that conversation with her is not going to work because she's not going to respect that anyway. She's like, whatever. So the only thing for a guy to do at that point is to recognize where he's at and start working on himself again. He has to get back to the beginning of the betatization process. He's got to learn how to pass those tests again so that you start re-earning that respect back. And when that respect comes back, then you can have a conversation like that. But one thing that a lot of guys don't even realize is that like 99% of guys aren't satisfying their woman. But a lot also at the same time, a lot of guys are almost over focused on trying to satisfy her. And so a lot of times it puts a lot of pressure on their wives or their girlfriends and they mentally check out because now that I've got to perform here, like he really wants me to do something. So for those types of guys, I actually tell them like, hey, it's almost better to take a step back and be more of a selfish lover for a little bit. And just worry about getting your needs met and have the sort of mentality that it's every adult's job in this interaction to get themselves off, at least for a while, right? And this is where
this goes back to why I say that in the beginning, if a woman hasn't made it a habit to arouse herself, she is going to have to treat it like a gym session where the first couple weeks, she's not gonna want to do it. She has to kind of force herself to do it. But then after a while, she will begin to enjoy it and get better every single time.
Yeah.
But a man tends to want that, crazy enthusiasm immediately when she has gotten out of a habit or haven't gotten into a habit. So I tell men, sometimes you have to shut your head off. Don't pay attention to her always being aroused or into it until she gets into the habit, and then we can address it. It's baby steps.
Yeah, no, I would say that's good advice. But what I would say to guys is after you sort of started being more of the selfish lover type, now it does behoove you to start learning how to be a better lover in the bedroom. A phenomenal book that was out there by my good friend, Eric Everhart. I don't know if you know him. He's a former adult star in the space. He wrote a great book called Unleash Your Sexual Superpowers. And it was one of the best books I've ever read on the subject. Because one of the things he talks about is how women can fake orgasms. They can fake the moaning. They can, squeeze their Kegel muscles. They can shake their legs. They can put on a great show. But one thing that they can't do is fake the arousal of their clitoris. And if you know what you're looking for, you can tell if you're doing a good job or not. And you can sort of just, play it like like Braille, right? You want to read that thing like Braille. So his book taught that, but it went out of print. It's so unfortunate too. I do have a copy for it, but and I made it available for my beer club guys, but
cool.
But you can't get it anymore on Amazon. It's really unfortunate. And he's trying to get the rights back, but he sold the rights to this publishing company. It's a whole long story, but phenomenal book. I would highly recommend that. There was another great book in the space that you can't get anymore called The Sex God Method. And even that, like, you have to find the right groups to find the right PDF and the right, guys are trading it around. If you try to buy it on Amazon, it's $3,000 on Amazon.
Wow.
Because it's the guy, I guess, doesn't. Yeah. But once you do that and you start applying the stuff, because reading information, like reading books is one thing, but if you don't apply it, it's pointless. It's just mental masturbation. So read this stuff and test it out. Have some science experience with your girl. Have a fun time with it. That's what I would say. But if you can get her really aroused consistently, she's putty in your hands. It's one of this guy in the space, Royce's 16 commandments, which is basically, you know, paraphrasing here, but it's basically if you dick her down right, she'll forget all your bullshit, right? So
there's a saying like there's a reset button in her G spot.
Oh yeah.